Okay, we're good to go. Stream is good. Sound looks good. Let me close out this tab.
Sounds like we're all go, Houston.
We're all go. Another Friday, another live stream. How is everyone doing out there? Thank you for joining us on this live stream. Hello, Perth, Australia. Australia is opening up to is opening up places of 50 people or more. Okay. Actually, I read that today.
I just had a call with George Samueli. He said that in Budapest, the outdoor cafes are open.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, over here, they opened up the outdoor cafes as well. You can sit outside. You can't go in. Hey, Valius, how are you doing? How are things in the U.S.? Hello from Wales. St. Lucia in the house. London, hot in London. It's hot in London today, huh?
Extremely so. We've had an April and May that have been remarkably hot for this time of year. Hot and sunny, unusually so.
Iron Horse, check out what Hillary is hiding in Belfast. Is there something going on in? Is Hillary hiding something in Belfast? It's a serious question. Is she?
Of course she is. She's got something hidden everywhere.
Everywhere. I mean, I've not heard of it, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me actually.
Oh, all right. Hey, Paula, Sydney, Australia. How you doing? In Sydney, Essex, UK, Netherlands. Where else? Tasmania. It's freaking freezing in Tasmania.
Oh, well, there you go.
All right. Well, it's plus 35 here, so I wouldn't mind a little bit of a cold breeze, to be honest. Hello from Slovenia, Lechat. How are you doing, Lechat? Good to have you here. Serbia for Trump. Alexander. Hey, Alexander, how are you doing?
I'm well.
I'm talking about Alexander in Serbia, but let's get to it. Alexander Mercurus, the Oracle of London in London. How are you doing, Alexander?
I'm all right. I've been struggling with hay fever all day. I've got various tablets and things, and it's under control. But apart from that, I'm fine.
All right. Hey, George in Cape Town.
Yeah.
How are things going in South Africa? We need to do a show about what's going on in South Africa, guys. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on. We haven't covered it yet.
No.
So we should really cover what's going on in South Africa. No. Peter in Moscow, the host of RT's Crosstalk. Russia's getting whopped by the virus, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, I read some Western commentary on it, and it's faulting the government. Actually, I'll be really honest, I fault the people. We had that window. To
explain
up and down, and people just didn't take it seriously. And this is what happens. Okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like,
obviously the virus didn't originate here. It was brought, and it was brought primarily, overwhelmingly, by Russians coming back to Moscow, and they were told to go to self-quarantine, self-isolate, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. It's simple as that. And now we're paying a huge cost for it. Now, Alexander McKeer has probably checked TASS.com before. I haven't today. But I mean, the number of deaths are not particularly high. And now we throw into the mix of testing, and there's an enormous amount of testing here. So it's kind of a convoluted thing to understand, but things are still closed. I'm understanding from what I've been told till the end of the month. Actually, the end of the month is when we're going to find out what the next step is, okay? And I'm really hoping that taking a page from the rest of the world, outdoor cafes, limited retail, just to get things moving again, okay? It's so many small businesses have been clobbered by that. That's my big heartbreak, is I know a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, they just got smacked by this. I mean, you can't, there's rent, there's inventory issues, payroll, and I mean, it's just a cascade of disaster. So, but yeah, we got clobbered, but I think in many ways, in my opinion, it was self-induced.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, let's discuss Biden, I guess. Let's jump into it. Leah, Denmark. How you doing, Leah? Let me just see who else is joining us in the chat. Wait just a couple more seconds for some more people to join us. From Brighton, England. Hillary is buying a home in Belfast, really?
No, I didn't know. Oh, gosh.
Hillary is buying a home here in Ireland. Noreen says, God.
Both homes.
I'm sorry, guys, if that's true. I'm really sorry if that's true. God be with you.
You know, I don't know. Is there an extradition law? I mean, that's it.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Belfast is still part of the United Kingdom, and we have a very tough extradition law with the US. Ask Julian Assange.
Vancouver, Canada, very cold. Samuel.
Yeah.
Hello from Thailand. From London. Hello, Peter, from another American in Moscow. That's from John. Peter, another American in Moscow says hello. Pete in Bangkok, Melbourne, Utah, Denmark, Belgium. All right, guys. Hey, hit that like, share the channel with everybody you know. You can also see the join button where you can join and become a member. You can also join us on Patreon and on Subscribestar. I'm preparing really good stuff, guys, for all our members. Trust me, I'm going to get some really good content stuff out for everybody. Just give me a little more time, and we got all kinds of new stuff coming out on the Duran shop as well. You guys are going to be blown away by the content and the new merch that's going to be coming out. So if you like, click that join button and join us for $1.99 a month. Scorching hot in Cyprus. DJ Jordy, where are you at in Cyprus, DJ Jordy? What city? Hello from Latvia, Toronto. Let's see. We're storing a few nukes in Belfast. Oh, well, Queensland, Australia, Quebec. All right. So a lot of people joining us from all over the world. And guys, I wonder if Creepy Sleepy Joe is watching us from his basement bunker in Delaware, right? So he's in Delaware.
He's in
the
Delaware.
The polls are saying that Biden's going to blow out Trump. And the polls are using modeling. And the modeling, you know, you just punch in the figures and the model gives the prediction. And because you're punching in figures like 20, 30 million unemployed and an economic disaster, the modeling obviously is going to give you that, you know, that Biden's going to come out ahead. But, well, I'm saying the modeling doesn't take into account, obviously, all the other factors that you just can't put into numbers.
Well, number one, modeling it doesn't have the best reputation right now. Number two, the polls were all wrong in 2016. And number three, what is it, 164 days until the election?
Exactly.
This is just hyperbole. It's ridiculous, okay? I mean, any of the polls that I would look at that I would take a marginal, very marginal interest is the 4, 5, 6 battlefield states, and that would be it. In these national polls, it's just a waste of time, and it's this the liberal media touting its own ideology and going after Trump. I mean, this is so, you know, it's so par for the course. So I wouldn't put anything into it. However, this is going to be a tight election, very tight.
But any election in the United States is now going to be tight because that's the nature of elections, it seems to me, in the United States. The days when a Ronald Reagan or Lyndon Johnson or Richard Nixon could win a landslide are well past us. And the thing that really impresses me at the moment is not that Biden has a lead. I mean, bear in mind, Hillary Clinton outvoted Trump on election day and she still lost. What is more interesting to me is that Trump's approval rating is rock solid. It's very, very stable.
Among Republicans.
But I mean, you know, it means he's got about 43, 44%. So he's got a strong base. And I don't think, actually, because of the very unusual situations, if the economy goes wrong, people will blame him. I mean, I think this is a misunderstanding of the dynamics of this. This is a pandemic situation which upturns all of the polling, because we've never been in a scenario like this before. I mean, this is something we've never encountered in the West since well, I mean, arguably since the Spanish flu in the early 20s.
All right, guys. Hey, Alan, how you doing, Alan? How are things going, Alan Watson, in the live stream? Guys, if things continue to open up, and if we start seeing the candidates get on the campaign trail, what do you think if I were to say Trump in a landslide, if that happens?
Okay, well, let's work with your premise here. Is that even going to happen?
If If.
I mean, because look, I mean, right now, and I'm just kind of pulling numbers out of the air here. I mean, I think you've already mentioned it. I mean, people congregating in groups of 10 or 15 or 20 or 50. I mean, that's not a Trump rally. Okay, that's what Biden would get. That's what he would get. Okay, but I feel pretty convinced that we're not going to see a real campaign, and I think this is sinister, to be honest with you. I think they want to avoid that. I think particularly for the Democrats, they want to make sure the convention is virtual, so they can do anything they want. Okay, and then now electronic voting and mailing and stuff like that. It's rife with problems. It's very open to corruption. I think we're going to get some really nasty maneuvering between now and election day, and I think it's very mean-spirited. All right, I'm very worried about that. Look what they did in the Iowa caucus. Okay, I'm sorry, you have to convince me it wasn't a coincidence. Okay? So I think we have a path ahead that is just rife with problems and maneuvering, because for God's sake, you can't put Joe in front of a large group of people for longer than 7 minutes, okay? I mean, they're not gonna risk it, and why should they? Well, why should they risk it? I mean, it's really easy for us to say Sleepy Joe, because he is, but it's working. It's working to some extent at least, okay? They're not gonna let him out of that basement. No way, not for a while still, until they figure out their next move here. The thing is that what they're gambling on, this is not a usual election, because we usually talk about continuity or change elections, just because of what Alexander McCarris just said. We're in a very different, on very different territory right now. This is a referendum on Donald Trump in a way that an incumbent has never had to experience before. And using this health crisis, and I'm willing to admit that it is a health crisis, but it's being so politicized right now. It's cover now for Democrats to get their candidate across the line. And that's why talking about the VP position, let me tell non-Americans watching this, nobody ever votes for VP, ever, okay? There's a lot of hype about it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. This time is the first time in history where it makes a difference, okay? Because if Joe does pass the finish line, he's going to be an incapacitated president as president-elect and when he's inaugurated. And the New York Times, over the last few days, actually asked the public to give choices of positions like in the State Department, Treasury, and all that. It's all Clinton cronies, okay? They're the ones who they want an Obama third term. That's what they're using Joe for, is to manage a Obama third term. And for many of the videos that we have made here, they really want a lot of the dirt on the Obama administration that is being revealed and surfacing. They want that to go away. They have more and more reasons to get Joe across the finish line without him campaigning. Mark my words, you heard it here. There will be no real campaign.
Can I just say a few things? Firstly, I don't think there's going to be a Trump landslide, because I can't imagine places like New York or California voting for Trump. I mean, that already, it seems to me, constrains the size of his victory, if he has a victory. But I think he's still, I think, in a good position to win. And what I'm going to say is this: I'm not a person who follows every day, the voting movements in the United States. But as I understand it, there have now been some actual elections, not just polls, in some places, including, interestingly, in California.
Yep. And
they have been pointing towards a movement towards the Republicans, away from the Democrats. Now, these are only, local elections. Local election results may not mean very much in the United States. In Britain, by the way, they tend to be good indicators of the way the direction of opinion is going. But I personally would not be surprised if you're starting to see a shift towards the Republicans, because when it comes down to it, once this crisis is overcome, people will be looking and they will be thinking about how these two candidates, Trump and Biden, performed. Now, Trump has been there. He's done things. He's spoken out. He's done presses. He's been all over the place. Biden has been invisible. He's been barely put together any kind of alternative program. He's been, as Peter said, in his basement in Delaware. I don't think he's cut an impressive figure. And yes, I agree that, you know, nobody in the United States votes for the vice president, but Biden has changed his position about this. He was going to be a black person. Now it's going to be a person who's been exposed to harassment, sexual harassment, which to my mind, by the way, is so absurd that it's almost self-condemning. Why need such a person? Is it because you've got problems that you want to balance out? I mean, you know, I'd say it was a bad mistake if that's the way he's going to promote it. But what it suggests to me is, one, he's finding problems picking a vice president, and there doesn't seem to be huge enthusiasm for people coming forward to want to be his potential vice president. And that suggests weakness. That suggests to me election.
I think there's enthusiasm for the job, because if for some reason Trump does win, the vice president could, and again, it goes through the chain of command, would be potentially in an amazingly strong position. And I don't want to be unkind here, but you know, Joe may not be in a mental condition to resist. I mean, he might just say, okay, you go ahead, I'll go with you, okay? I mean, he may not be in a position to be able to resist, and I think that's what makes it really important. The problem is here, there's enthusiasm, but there's no competence, and I think that is the real problem here, because and of course, this is going to be all based on woke politics, which is going to turn off a lot of people, And I think that's what the Biden campaign is trying to juggle right now, because they all know they want somebody that is going to be friends with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and all the, you know, when they talk about the Obama coalition, I don't talk about, you know, Hispanics and blacks and educated whites. No, Obama's coalition was corporate America. Now, that is his coalition. And they're never going to accept somebody like Elizabeth Warren, never, okay? Amy Klobuchar, maybe, Stacey Abrams, maybe, but her resume is scant, okay? It's not, there's no merit there, okay? I mean, it's a good feeling, but at the same time, that is very dangerous to do that. And I think a lot of people will see it that way. And it's just checking the boxes, which is some people are so sick and tired of right now. But what's happening here is that when I think, when one can say that the country is open, and American viewers of this podcast will know America's a very complicated place because it's 50 states. And so we have different states doing different things. That's part of the way the country works or doesn't work. I think the real sentiment that we need to be looking at is how people perceive coming out of the lockdown, and what kind of economic recovery, if there will be one, what kind it will be. That's what I think people will be voting on. Trump's strength is the economy overall. He's got to do some magic over the next 3 months. And I don't think he's doing the right thing. I think what he needs to do, he needs to go to the left of Biden. That is a winning proposition. Go right left to him, like he did with Hillary Clinton. But you know, he has his people coming out, and it's the same stodgy GOP nonsense that's not going to get him elected. What he needs to do is he needs to appeal to the working class directly. You know, just think about it, guys. Here's Joe Biden. He has an complete lane open to himself, and he can't use it because I don't think he's capable of doing it. Even his advisors can't. What he should be doing right now is that he should be demanding Pelosi on the phone, Schumer on the phone, get me Cuomo on the phone. I'm the presumptive nominee. He should be taking charge. This is an amazing opportunity. He's not doing it because he can't do it, or they don't know how to make him do it. And this is Trump's opening. Trump needs to say, these people they will not deal with the working class issues of payroll and other things, keeping people in their jobs so they can keep their health care. All this is no-brainer stuff. It's no-brainer. And you can't make the claim they ain't no money because they're spending money left and right and center right now. I don't understand the political calculus here. Alexander Christopher, you follow this very closely. Tell me I'm wrong or why I'm wrong.
Well, my question is this, because I hear it from a lot of progressives that he should go to the left of Biden, but you said working class.
I'm saying conservatives are saying.
Yeah, I know, but you said working class people, that he needs the support of the working class people. I mean, I look at middle America and I say Trump already has the support of the working class people. It's Biden that's become the elitist candidate. It's Biden and the Clinton machine that has New York and Massachusetts and California and the Hollywood actors and all that.
But you and I know it's always been, and the only thing Bill Clinton ever said that was right is that it's the economy, stupid. If there's not the manager, if you're not going to go in there and give concierge service to the working class, like concierge service has been given to corporate America, he's going to get people may be not only discouraged, they may be angry, and they may not vote. Okay, I think you really need to solidify that. Okay, and I don't see that's happening. I simply don't understand why the administration isn't more aggressive in this area. We'd say, let's wait and see. No, that is the worst possible strategy right now. Because by keeping Joe in the basement, what are they doing? What are his handlers doing? They're allowing people to keep the old memory of Joe in their head. And to be fair, Joe's just kind of a nice guy. That is his persona. Okay, the less you hear from him, the more they preserve that old memory of Joe. He's been in politics for a half century. Okay, with his gaffes and his backslapping and his touchiness and all of that. He's like an uncle in American politics. Okay, but a lot of things are happening on the ground, and I think the administration is losing an amazing opportunity here.
I think the point is that Donald Trump has never struck me as being much of an ideas person. He's not a strategy person. He is an instinctual politician, somebody who is very empathic with the people that he actually comes into contact with. But I think for him to sit down at a desk and plan a strategy in the kind of way that you've been describing, Peter, I don't think that's it. That's him. What he's going to do, which is what Donald Trump always does, is he's going to wait for the Democrats to start making mistakes, which they're going to do. They've already done it. I mean, we've seen this.
But that's what the Democratic strategy is with Trump.
I know. But I don't think the Democrats, because that's a discipline thing with them. With him, it's an instinctive thing. Already you're seeing it. You saw this extraordinary list of potential cabinet members that the New York Times pulled up, which is, it's corporatist, neocon America. I mean, if you wanted to pick, I mean, the one that really floored me, I have to say, was Michael Bloomberg as Treasury Secretary, Mitt Romney as Secretary of State,
also Samantha Power possibly for Secretary of State,
Adam Schiff as Attorney General. I mean, really, when you start getting these sort of candidates, these kind of names being put up, well, this is what he likes to work on. He's brilliant at playing this kind of thing. It's like he's fuel. It's like the sort of fuel that keeps him running. And then, he'll be able to come back and he'll be able to sort of talk out and speak out and hit back at this. As I said, Donald Trump is always strongest on the rebound. So the option...
I think that's all fair. That's all fair. I think that's good analysis. However, let's look at a key part of the electorate, and now it doesn't go from party to party. It's a certain segment. It's elderly people, and they're worried about their health care. And this pandemic is obviously scared a lot because they're the people that are most at risk here. Okay, they're they're looking at the reaction of the administration here now. Their polling numbers, when you look at them, Trump is in big trouble with that segment of the population. And you know what? They almost always vote. Yes. That is the segment of society that votes the most. And he is in trouble with that segment here. And they need to address that. I'm just completely befuddled. I think this is such an opportunity to show the incompetence of the Democratic Party with Nancy Pelosi's Christmas list. I mean, why isn't that being exploited more? I mean, I'm just bewildered by it all. It's not solving the crisis. that is just padding the wallets of their friends, Planned Parenthood, and people like that. And so I think that the GOP and the people that are surrounding Trump are just too conventional. This is an unconventional time. Be bold, because the Biden campaign seems to be immobilized. I mean, this is the biggest political opportunity in my lifetime for a party to win the White House, and they don't know what to do. And this is why I think the Trump people need to take the initiative here. Because think about it, you guys. A presumptive nominee for a major political party in the United States, he's basically comatose, and he's running ahead, at least in the polls, against Trump. There's something wrong with that picture.
I think we need to take a step back and understand that we're now towards the end of May. We're coming towards the end of May. I think the best of Trump is yet to show.
I agree with that.
That's what I think is going to happen. And I think looking at Biden, I'll say a couple of things. I think Trump has done a great job, and he's just beginning to really brand Biden for what he is. And I think the creepy, sleepy Joe has overtaken the whole Uncle Joe thing. I hate it when like Laura Ingraham and Hannity and these people who have been behind Trump from the get-go always say stuff like, Joe Biden. I like Joe Biden. I hear Laura Ingraham say that all the time.
I know.
That makes my blood boil, because the truth of the matter is that Biden is an extremely corrupt, bloodthirsty, evil politician. That's my opinion. He has done serious damage to the world. Serious damage to it. Just take a look at Ukraine and what's happened there. And I think that Trump has done a good job of exposing that. I think the best is yet to come. And I think there is news that they are moving ahead, at least with Blue Star Consulting. They are moving ahead to subpoena, these companies involved in Ukraine and these lobbying firms involved in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And I think he's going to hit at that really hard. Maybe come August, September, I think we're going to see a lot more movement there.
It's very interesting, but let's take a step back. I'll tear a page from your script. I think it would be a mistake to overdo that, because look what Russiagate did to a lot of people. It's just started doing this to people. It's like, another story. Ukraine, where's that? Okay. I think that the problem is that people are being numbed by it all. Okay. I'll make an admission here. When the impeachment, remember the impeachment process? I was just wondering, what is this about? And I know Ukraine politics really well. I have been there, okay? But even when I was watching the proceedings, saying, what is this about? So if I'm saying, what is this about?
Yeah, but
the average person is really out to see.
That's
like, what is
exactly.
This? We have to be careful the Trump people have to be careful not to fall into the same trap.
Can I just finish? That's the brilliance of it. I agree with you there. The Democrats, they don't have the power that Trump has, the marketing power. And here's why I say Trump will get the message out perfectly. MAGA, make America great again. Build the wall. Lock her up. Crooked Hillary. Creepy, sleepy Joe. I think give Trump a little bit more time, and he's going to crystallize why Biden is so corrupt and so incompetent to be president. Because I think Trump is going to come up with those slogans and those catchwords, which are going to resonate. He's going to push it. And I think that's going to sit with people. It's going to sit in the back of their head. I think lock her up and Crooked Hillary. We still now, think of Hillary and we think Crooked Hillary and lock her up. Trump is brilliant at that.
But don't you think, Alex, we have to think of retail politics here. Don't you think that a good part of what the decision will be in November is the state of the economy at the end of the day? Because it seems to me, again, I think that this is the administration is floundering. I'll give you a case in point. Why did the White House accede to letting Nancy be the kingmaker of all of these relief programs and stimulus? Where was the White House? Where were they? What were their plans? Why didn't they push it more into the public consciousness? Okay, because I thought the White House was remarkably quiet, and this is a crisis that hasn't been experienced for generations. All right, and I think that a much more forceful, direct approach and saying that the Democrats, all they want to do is waste money, or their special interest, which is all true, okay? But they should have just channeled and said, no, we have the COVID-19 crisis relief program and 5 major points, not 800 pages of garbage, okay? And you have to go, and that's supposed to be, nominally speaking, his strong suit. He should focus only on his strong suit and let all of it be hot air. And I think that would resonate. And to your point about these slogans and all, those are people already support him. Okay, those people already are behind him. For me, it's going to be the recovery.
Yeah, okay. But it's part of the branding power of Trump that the Democrats don't have. But I think on the economy side, and then Alexander to jump in, I think on the economy side of things, I think that's exactly Trump's calculus, is let the Democrats shoot themselves in the foot. Let them push all of this Planned Parenthood stuff and this Kennedy
marijuana,
Theater stuff.
Retail.
Right, because I think the bet is this: if you can get Trump out there speaking to the people, get past the pandemic, and somehow figure out a way to get him to speak to the people, it's game over.
But I'll just one more quick thing. We'll go to Alex. You're absolutely right, and it's a rhetorical thing. We have to get past this pandemic, and it has to be messaged that we're past. Because you look at the liberal media. No, we're never getting out of this. That's their message. Okay, they want to wind the clock down. See, what Trump needs to do, in vein of what you were just saying, is he needs to grab the narrative. We are past this. We're in the next stage. We are rebuilding, and when it has to be so amplified and so laser focused on that, because I agree with you. You know, the marketing element, he proved it in 2016. Look, he destroyed the Republican field all by himself, okay, a novice, okay? But he is an incumbent. He is responsible, and he needs to focus his attention on what's most important to people, not Stacey Abrams and these ridiculous articles written about her, but about how getting working people back into the economy. That's going to be his key to victory. And if he doesn't do it, he's in trouble. I'm sorry, Alex.
Let me give you a lead in, Alexander. Yeah, let me give you a lead in, Alexander. Peter said to build on that. Trump is a builder. So I think he's going to push infrastructure and building the economy. I think he understands that language very well. Number one, Alexander. And I was going to say something else, but I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
It happens to all of us. What I want
go ahead, Alexander.
I think we're going to be. I mean, the economy will be in recession come the election. I don't think the American people are going to say Donald Trump brought the economy into recession. What they're going to be looking at is not the state of the economy then. They will be asking which of these two leaders, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, is better for the economy going forward. And here, the opinion polls that I have seen suggest that they still think that is going to be Donald Trump. So I think that's a thing to bear in mind. I mean, well, bear in mind, we're probably at the bottom now. So he does have, it seems to me, a good polling runway if he uses it well. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say is that I absolutely agree that most people who follow Russiagate and all its various convolutions are not interested in the details of it. I mean, I think that is an impossible thing to accept. I mean, I woke up this morning, I found new things about Russiagate all the time, just tumbling out, little things. It's, as I said, even I'm struggling to stay on top of it all. But I think a lot of people do understand the overarching narrative, which was that this was an attempt to remove the president from office, the elected president from office. And I think that is something that he is able to play on and will be playing on more and more as the election season progresses and as more and more information, very, very bad information.
We got to hope that the Duran report comes out before the election, because Alex and McKersey, you're absolutely right. But Trump can't all by himself be pushing that line. He has to have evidence. he has to have, well, the investigation is complete and this is their independent results and conclusions. That will have cachet. But if he just goes around and keeps saying, I was set up and they spied on me, I mean, that's worn out, okay? It's worn out. I mean, and to be honest with you, I mean, all three of us, four of us invested a lot into understanding Russiagate, and I think our viewers are thankful for that. But I think most people are just tired of it.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
And
so they should be.
If you're living in a place where you can't get a haircut and you can't buy gardening equipment and you can't allowed to go to church, I mean, who cares about Russiagate when you're facing that reality?
Oh, no, I understand. I understand all of that.
You've got to be realistic.
I understand all of that, but as I said, if we're looking at the thing moving forward, as I said, I think he does have arguments to play for. As I said, yes, I think we're going to have an economy in recession, but it's deep whether or not deep recession, very deep recession. But the question is, can he persuade people that he's the better person to handle the economy going forward? I think anybody looking at Joe Biden will see that this is a man who has no plan, and the people he's going to appoint are again going to be the same people who've been there before. So,
but don't you think? I don't think it's going to be either. This guy is better than this guy. What it's going to be, and this is what makes this election so pathetic. It has nothing to do with Joe Biden at all, and that's why his handlers are not pushing him, because he's not part of the electoral equation. It's all a referendum on Donald Trump, and that's what they want it to be. And if it was really about this guy versus this guy, then I think the Biden people would be far more active. No, what they're doing is waiting for Trump to drive the whole thing into a ditch. That's what they're.
I think they're hoping for that, because I think they are struggling to come up with a narrative of their own. I think their narrative was going to be Russiagate, by the way. I think this is the original game plan, that this was a president. This is baked in the cake way back in 2016. They were going to come after Donald Trump as the president who had been compromised by a foreign power.
But don't you think they would have played it if they had those cards still close to their chest? Don't you think they would have played that by now?
Well, they don't. The point is, they don't have those cards. It's all collapsed on them.
I mean,
that's their problem.
Yeah, okay, but Alex, I mean, Russiagate is collapsed. Okay,
yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it will continue to collapse even more, but it doesn't matter how much more it collapses. It's collapsed. Okay?
Yes, I know.
I think most people think it's well, that was a waste of time, or we were played. I don't think, if we find out more about Peter Strzok, I don't think that's a game.
But bear in mind.
For us it is, because we invested so much into it.
The point is, Russiagate is a Democrat story. It was they who launched it. It was they who invented it. It was they who have run for 3 years with it. It's now imploded on them. And now that it's imploded, they don't have a narrative. They don't have anything to put in its place. And that's their problem.
Well, no, they do. It's incompetence in
pandemic. But if you have an argument of incompetence, you've got to show that you're going to be more competent than the person you're accusing of being incompetent.
You're too smart.
And if you're hiding in a basement,
I don't think that's how I don't think that's how the Democrats and the media want to play it. Okay, I just don't. This is a referendum beginning to end on Donald Trump.
Can I ask you a question, Peter and Alexander? If this is a referendum on Trump, I can understand that thinking, especially from the Democrat side. Let's make this a referendum on Trump. But on the flip side, if you're an American voter and you're saying, okay, I'm gonna place my vote depending on the basis of how Trump has done governing the country through this pandemic, don't you also take a look at the person that's going to replace Trump? And don't you sit there, if you're in the ballot box, don't you sit there and scratch your head and say, okay, so maybe I'm not too happy with Trump. I'm saying, hypothetically speaking, I'm not happy with Trump. So I'll vote for who? Biden? Is he going to even be in office? Is this even a real candidate? If I'm going to place my vote for Biden, who's going to really be the president? Who's going to really be running the show? Am I going back to Hillary Clinton? Am I going back to the Obama years? Am I going to go back to that disaster? I mean, even if it's in a referendum on Trump, Don't you have to have the other side of the coin?
I don't think necessarily.
Or someone that's tangible?
No, but you're too,
on?
again, you're too smart. Okay, you're too smart for this.
I mean, it's a serious question for. I mean, don't you?
The way they frame it is that it's not an either or. They're framing it. Was this a successful presidency? Has nothing to do with Joe Biden whatsoever. And that's how they're framing it. Will it work? We'll find out. But they're framing it as, that's why they're not carting him out. It's not important to do that right now because they can fix their side of this, go to the convention and then going into the general. But what they want to do is they're going to focus all of their energy, like they have for the last 3.5 years, about the incompetency of the Trump administration. And there are plenty of people that are very angry with how the administration dealt with this pandemic. And there could be possibly even far more people if the beginning of the recovery isn't handled correctly. Joe Biden doesn't have anything to do. He's a placeholder. That's my opinion. That's my approach.
Yeah, but aren't they also angry, Alexander? Aren't they also angry more at the governors of each state? Because I mean, people may be angry at, say, the administration, but I think Trump has done a really good job, and I really mean that, a good job at balancing the federal government and states' rights. And when people, I've spent most of my life in the US, and most of the times I would say I always looked at how my city was governed and how my state was governed. And maybe on big picture issues, I would think about the federal government. So I can just imagine myself, if I was in the US right now, if I was back in say, Arizona, I would be thinking, what the hell is the governor doing? What the hell is the mayor of Phoenix doing? I wouldn't be thinking straight away at Trump. So I think there's a lot of anger, maybe more anger, at how each governor in each specific state.
But that doesn't elect a president.
Yes,
right. But I'm saying maybe that anger doesn't carry all the way towards Trump. And when you get to the ballot box for the president, you're not going to put all the blame on Trump. And another point, Alexander, so that you can comment on is, don't you also have that risk factor where you say, once again, maybe I'm not going to vote for Trump, but God, what a big risk it would be to vote for a guy that I know is not going to be there 6 months from now. He may not even be there in November, guys. I mean, we don't know. He may not even be there in November. And what a risk it would be to go back.
But aren't you proving my point? You're proving my point. Is that you're not being asked, objectively speaking, is this man competent to even hold the office? The whole question is, this other guy, the guy in the White House, is incompetent. See, the way you frame it, I mean, just watch all the junk on MSNBC and CNN. That's exactly how they frame it. Okay, they're not talking about what a Biden administration might do. They don't know. The only kind of anecdotal evidence that we have is the people that he is interested in. Bringing in people from Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and Obama neocons. Okay, that is about as far as they want to go. Because a referendum by definition is yes or no. Ask people about Brexit. Okay, it's you like this guy or you don't like this guy. It's not the question. The way it's being framed is it, what about in comparison to this guy? See, they're not doing that. Okay.
Alexander,
I'm not convinced.
We do know what Biden would do, Alexander.
We do.
I mean, they picked the cabinet for him.
Yeah. Well, quite possibly. Now, look, I can't talk about feeling towards governors and people like this because this is something which, not being an American, it's outside my experience. I mean, I know
you're lucky.
By comparison with Britain, the United States is a very decentralized country. As I understand it, people in the United States do not have the sense that everything is focused on the government at the center in the way that we do in Britain. I don't have the necessary feeling for this, but I am not convinced actually either that this is simply a referendum on Donald Trump. I'm not sure it can ever be. First of all, Donald Trump has the support of the Republican voters. I mean, he starts with that. I mean, and that's remaining remarkably solid. And I think Biden is going to have the support of most Democrat voters too, because that's the way it seems to me elections now work in the United States. There is going to be a group of people in the center, in the middle, who are going to be saying to themselves, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a committed Republican, I'm not a committed Democrat. Which way am I going to vote in this situation? And I think those people do balance out. They do ask themselves, who ultimately is the stronger candidate in these situations? And they're going to compare someone, Donald Trump, who's all over the place, who speaks, who talks, who does all kinds of things. Maybe you don't always agree with him, often you're angry with him, but he is there with the invisible man. And in elections that I've been involved in, and they are European elections, America may be different, but in European elections, at least, what tends to happen in my experience is that those sort of voters, in the end, coalesce behind the person they tend to see as the stronger candidate. That's my experience. Now, America may be different. America, it may be that people think in a different way. It may be that America is so polarized that there's going to be a lot of people who will say, well, Donald Trump is clearly so incompetent that, I'm going to vote for Biden because Biden can't possibly be worse. I mean, I'm sure there are that people.
Yeah, but they're going to vote for Biden because he's not Trump. Okay, I think I've been misunderstood here.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that I'm not disagreeing with anything that either Alex has said on this program, actually. What I'm trying to say is that is being framed, the narrative is being framed as a referendum. Now, we'll see if that framing is successful, okay? Because we really don't, what we do know, at least from the Democrats in their own internal polling, is that enthusiasm for Joe is at a historic low for a presumptive nominee, at a historic low. And young people, which they think is their constituency, they are indifferent and may not vote at all. Okay. Yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going on here, but I want to make sure everyone understands me is that the framing of it, the way the Democrats and the media will frame it, it doesn't mean it's going to work, right? I want to be clear about that. And my major concern, everyone already knows this, is that it's so early right now. It's see how people perceive the recovery. That is going to be the most important thing, because so many lives have been shattered. And people aren't even thinking about politics right now. And when they're given an opportunity, who knows what they're going to do? And we have no idea if the Bernie bros are going to come out in force at all. That is Joe's biggest liability. All right. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. It's just that I will reiterate, I'm just disappointed with the Trump people of not, getting into their own lane and just and outflanking the Biden people. I mean, the Biden people are so lethargic right now. I mean, they can't even get out of their own way. No. So, I mean, Alexander Christopher may be absolutely right. Is that we're getting once there's the perception that the pandemic has receded, that's when he's going to go on the offensive, big league, go total animal, as Steve Bannon would say.
Peter and Alexander, a quick question. If you guys can chime in, do you and we joke around about it a lot. I joke around the most about it. That I actually do believe it. Yeah, this is a serious question. Do you think Biden will make it to November, Peter and Alexander? Seriously, do you think he'll make it?
Most likely, yes. Most likely, yes. Though I don't discount the possibility of some shenanigans, and that's what the Clinton clan is all about. It's not impossible, though it's unlikely as we speak here on May 22nd.
I think that the fact that he's hiding in the basement is actually, in terms of replacing him as the Democratic candidate, is actually working to his advantage, because it means that he's sort of parked there, and it makes it much more difficult for the Democrats, for Hillary Clinton, for whoever else it is, to sort of lever him out. I think the time frame to do that is fading away, and I think the Democrats may be stuck with him all the way to November, because the clock is now running out on this. That's my instinct. I think we will see him actually as the Democratic Party candidate in the November election. That's my own guess.
Having said that, let's all keep in mind the primary technically is not over.
No.
We haven't even had the convention, okay? And the DNC, they've done it many times in the past in this cycle, and they may do it again, is change the rules. Okay.
Yeah, they could.
And you know what? They can do it.
Of course they can. They're the most ruthless group of people in politics. I mean, let's be absolutely clear about that. I suspect, by the way, that was some people's agenda to sort of, treat Biden as a sort of El Cid character who's going to push.
The interesting, weird calculus is that the Dems, they think this is winnable. They think this is winnable as we speak right now. And so why mix it up too much? This just kind of coast to November. And because of how the pandemic is being politicized, they can avoid a conventional campaign for the general election. They may be, I feel almost certain that they're angling for that. We're going to have the most bizarre election in American history.
Yes. I'm going to say straight away this, because again, this is my own experience of elections, which is from European countries, which is much smaller. The gap in the polls, to the extent that it exists, isn't big enough, anywhere close to being big enough, to make a coasting strategy a safe one. I think that's one thing I have to say. I mean, Donald Trump's support is far too solid, far too resilient. He's doing sufficiently well in the battleground states now at what is probably the most difficult point this year to make that a safe strategy to follow. And it's parties that think that they can sit back and let the thing, roll its way towards victory. Actually, in my experience, they tend to lose it. They tend to lose it.
When I kind of just maybe put some flesh on some bones that I mentioned earlier, is that I've seen Trump surrogates coming out over the last couple of weeks and how they envision the recovery, and I'm left just speechless. I mean, that's all you want to do? Just deregulate payroll tax?
No.
That's not inspiring. It's not inspiring. It's been bandied about over the last couple of weeks in the mainstream media is that people are invoking FDR. And I think that's appropriate because we have the same magnitude of crisis. Why isn't the Trump administration emulating FDR? Okay. I'm just at a loss. This is like such an open lane right now. And they're not. And maybe that, as we've basically agreed, when there is the perception that the pandemic has receded, it's under control, then we'll have this kind of strategic plan of reimagining America, but from the White House instead of from Nancy Pelosi. Maybe I'm just too impatient.
I think you answered the question. I think that Trump is not a politician. I think when you get down to it, he is a manager and he's a businessman. I think he's going to hold out as much as he can, looking at it from a business perspective, to assess the damage before he makes any spending decisions. I really think that's what he's looking at. If I were to get into Trump's mind, I would be looking at this from a business perspective and just say, look, let me hold out as long as I can before I make decisions as to how to get the economy back moving.
I would disagree with that. I would say just the opposite. I think that once the unemployment numbers started to skyrocket, he should have said, how can we deal with that? That is the single most important thing that he could have dealt with. And that would have shown an FDR-esque approach, okay? And that goes to real people with real problems. Why were trillions of dollars given to people that don't even need it in the first place? Wow. That angers people. It angers me, okay? And if we would have said, look, we just need to keep people on payrolls, okay? That's what we need to do. And we can do it. We need to do it for at least the next 6 months, okay? That would have been a very smart move. The policy now of waiting and seeing, and then I see these surrogates come out and they just remind me of Goldman Sachs people, and they all have their 6-figure jobs. They haven't lost anything. They're getting haircuts. I mean, I'm serious. The perception here is that you need to help real people, and that is and that has come up short. And I think that's a danger.
Alexander?
No, I mean, I have no. I'm not a supporter of the way the economic responses right across the world to this crisis. I think that they've been very misconceived in many ways. The one thing I'm going to say is what Trump has done is fully within the conventional wisdom, which Joe Biden is not challenging. There's no sense here that he's going to do anything different. On the contrary, he's closer to the people who are being bailed out, in Wall Street and those sort of places that Donald Trump is. So, and Donald Trump has, at times, sort of shown some understanding that there might be alternatives. I mean, he is not part of the, high-tech industries, financial market services nexus. His background is in construction, and he's much closer to industry and to the world of industry and manufacturing and business than those people are. But I come back to what I said. He's not ultimately an ideas man. He's not somebody who comes down and, brings in economists and, speaks to economists in the way that Roosevelt did, by the way. I mean, he that's not his style. He feels his way towards a solution. And at the moment, he's finding it difficult to feel his way because this pandemic has cut him off. That's one of his.
Yeah, but can't you put the bailouts on the Democrats and the Republicans, Peter? Can't you put it on Congress and the Senate as well?
Of course.
Absolutely.
And why did the White House let them steal their wind?
Yes.
He ran as a populist in 2016. Why isn't he running as a populist in 2020?
Well, because
he's absolutely spot on. He surrounded himself with these conventional thinking.
Yeah.
He surrounded himself. Okay. Do you think that if JP Morgan calls the White House to get to pick up the phone, you bet they will. Okay. But what about medical workers in the state of Colorado and their people call up and say we need PPE? Do you think they're going to pick up the phone? I don't know. It worries me that they won't. For me, this is just all of this is really simple to me. Okay. I mean, because their special interests have already been paid off. They've been paid off. They're not going to bother anyone now. They got their loot. Okay. Now, if you're going to spend another $1 trillion, why don't you put it in the hands of people that can really use it? There's no downside to that. And you steal the win from the Democrats, which actually they're the ones that are against that. They took that out of Nancy's bill. Nobody's supporting this. This is an issue that is open for anyone that wants to grab it.
Couldn't you say, though, Alexander, that Trump was responsive to the needs of the states? I mean, take New York, for example. Whatever Cuomo asked for, Trump gave it. California as well. I mean, whatever they asked for during the crisis, and they've admitted it themselves, Cuomo and Newsom, they've admitted that Trump was extremely responsive. But at the end of the day, it seemed like it was this trap. Trump would give it to them. We need 30,000 ventilators, whatever it was. And Trump would give it. And then at the end of the day, Cuomo would say, well, we really don't need that anymore. And Orange Man bad.
Yes, and can I just say two things? First of all, I mean, one thing that Biden has enormously working in his favor is, of course, he's got a legacy media, and which is totally going to side with disaster figures like Cuomo and de Blasio against Trump. Now, Trump did, in my opinion, support New York a lot. I sent you some time ago an article, Alex, which showed what a total shambles de Blasio and Cuomo made in New York.
Disaster.
It was a disaster. I mean, it cannot be overstated how bad it was. And by the way, can I just also say that in my opinion, if the situation in New York had been contained properly, we would not have had anything like the kind of epidemic situation across the United States that has happened. But that's a subject for another video. I think Donald Trump actually has not handled this situation, the pandemic situation, at all badly. I've been trying to argue this and explain why cutting through all of this. But of course, the problem is if you have a media that is going to continuously say that you're doing badly, that will invent absurd stories like that Donald Trump was advising people to inject, what was it, detergent into themselves. Well, it's very difficult sometimes to get a message across from that.
No, I'm not going to let you off the hook. That's what he's supposed to be good at. And that's where I fault him, because I think he lost the narrative. And I think that, and if he wants to be reelected, he has to recapture. Alexander Christopher, Trump has done a remarkable job in reacting to this. Remarkable. He's given everything everybody wanted. Okay. But it's not framed that way. I keep going back to this, you guys, how it's all framed. And he needs to break out of that frame. And he's been in stasis, in my opinion, for the last few weeks about this, all right? I mean, the legacy media, Alexander McCurris is absolutely right. I mean, nothing he can do is a positive, okay? That's a given, all right? The thing is that he needs to be able to get the messaging out there. I think this needless quarreling with Fauci and the media and all that was to his detriment. He didn't score any points with that at all, okay? And it was a unforced error, in my opinion. It wasn't presidential enough during a crisis. FDR, remember those three initials. I want an FDR-esque response to this. We're not getting it.
All right, 2 quick questions to move it along. I've got 2 quick questions. Actually, 1 quick question and 1 longer question. So Peter, Alexander, Fauci has kind of disappeared, true? Yeah. So it looks like Trump has gotten past the Fauci era. Correct or not correct? Yes?
Well, I hope so.
I mean, you don't see him as much. I'm saying you don't see him as much.
Well,
I think that is a conscious decision from the White House, correct?
Well, and not before time, if I may say. I mean, I don't understand why this person was allowed to seize the prominence that he did. I repeat again, he is there to advise the President of the United States, not to roam around the TV studios undermining the President of the United States. He works for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is his boss. So I hope we have seen the back, at least the visible back of Fauci. If he's there giving advice to Donald Trump, that's fine. But as I said, I don't want to see him touring studios again. And I speak as somebody who knows what he's talking about. I mean, I've been in advisory situations myself. I know what the role of an advisor is.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. I mean, I don't know why he was given such a pedestal.
No.
There's another unforced error.
Yeah.
All right. And the second question, which is more of an analysis question. Let's take the hypothetical situation, God help us, that Biden does win.
Which is possible.
Or the Democrats, whatever that team may be, does take the White House. We kind of know what to expect from Trump, I think, now. And I always default to some very simple thinking. In the 4 years that Trump has been president, we haven't had a major war or conflict. And that's a positive, I think, a big positive. We also know what a Biden cabinet may be. And Peter, you said that, the New York Times have kind of picked Biden's candidate. So both of you guys, if Biden were to win, how do you envision a foreign policy of Biden's? I mean, are we going to go back to regime change, wars, conflicts? How will he handle Russia, China? What do you guys see to close out the video? If you had to look in your crystal ball, say Biden did win, God help us.
Well, let's go back to Bush.
Envision foreign policy.
Yeah.
Go back to Bush Obama.
Yes, and with probably with an even more aggressive edge. I think that you'd see more hostility to Russia. You'd continue to see more hostility to China, and you'd see more regime change wars and all of that. So I think we would be straight back to Obama, perhaps with a bit more openly and a bit worse. But I think if we see an Obama presidency, I think the other problem. Biden, sorry, Obama 2 president, a Biden presidency. I think the other thing we would probably see is deepening political conflict within the United States itself. because all the problems that we have would be completely unresolved, and they get worse, and there would be a lot of anger and resentment on an awful lot.
About 10 days ago, Christopher, I don't know if you saw it, but Tucker Carlson had the Swedish ambassador to the United States on his program. And she said something that just resonates with me. I think about it a lot. She explained how the Swedish government reacted to the pandemic, and they took very different measures. This is what she said, and I think about it all the time. In Sweden, the people trust the government, and the government trusts the people. And I'm reflecting upon what Alexander Makiris just said, that no matter the outcome in November, the level of mistrust will only increase, irrespective of the outcome. That's a pretty sad prognosis.
Absolutely, but I agree with it. That's my view too.
We would probably see a slide in Syria, Iraq.
Well, I mean, Ukraine. One of the things that'll be really interesting is that we see, right? I watch, read antiwar.com very closely every day, and it seems really quite obvious that the highest levels of the military have decided to pull up stakes in the Middle East primarily. Basically, it's time to pivot, and now it's to China. And we're going to talk about China for years and years to come, because the propaganda machine for the military-industrial complex is churning up. And I'll be focusing a lot of that on Crosstalk. I think that's where the new Cold War is going to, well, it's already started. And I think that there's a pivot away, because there's nothing to be won in a strategic backwater known as the Middle East. And I think we'll see continuing deterioration of U.S.-Saudi relations, for example. Obviously, Israel is a wild card, but remember, Biden was part of an administration that was going to abstain on a UN resolution on Israel and settlements. So Benjamin Netanyahu's got to be sweating a bit right now, because at least if we go by precedent, Biden was part of an administration that had cooling relations with Israel. But I think, if there's a Biden administration, the coup will continue in Venezuela for sure. I think stoking of tensions in Hong Kong for sure. Yeah, I mean, Trump, he's waffled a lot. And waffling is kind of positive given the last 40 years, okay? That's a positive. I don't think a Biden administration would waffle at all, okay? Particularly when the multipolar world has arrived and the US and its elites are having such difficulty adjusting to a multipolar world. And that adjustment has been seen in using force and aggression. And we're get used to that for the next few years, all right? To some degree, that's already happening in the Trump administration. It'll just go full neocon under a Biden administration.
All right. Any other comments, guys, before we get to Super Chats?
Well, I think that this is going to be a very tight election. I think any election at the moment in the United States is tight, but I think there's everything to play for. I think that the idea that it's decided now is wrong. And if I was a gambling man, which I'm not, by the way, but if I was, I'd still put my money on Trump at this point.
All right, Peter, any final thoughts before we get to Super Chats?
We got a long way to go. For me, it's all about the perception of how the recovery is going to be seen. For me, that's the be all and end all, because that's basically how Trump has imagined himself to the electorate, that he's a can-do guy. And so he's got to do it.
Okay, all right, let's get to some Super Chats, guys. From Dominique, is a new member to the Duran community. Welcome, Dominique. Thank you for joining. Toilet Sauce, Super Chat, €5. Drop my magic mug today. Don't worry, the mug is fine, but now I have broken a tile on the floor. That is a magic mug for you.
There we go.
These things are strong.
Always by my side. They're very strong.
All right, from Sparky, $5 Super Chat. When Hillary flies into the convention on her broom to save the day, should she bring her entourage of flying monkeys, or would that be over the top?
Well, it would
Don't rule out Hillary. Don't rule out Hillary. I'll say that over and over again. She may be the person running. Good possibility of that. Thank you for that super chat, Sparky. Douglas York is now a member to the Duran community. Welcome, Douglas. From Sparky, $2 super chat. Ballot harvesting, election frauds out of control.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they're trying to push. The Democrats are trying to push for mail-in voting.
Yeah.
To have the whole election, Alexander, be mail-in voting.
Well, I know, but that which would be terrible. But there we go.
But
not necessary either, by the way. I mean,
you need a plane ticket. You need documents to get on a plane. You need documents to open a bank account. But they don't want to. You don't need documents to vote. I mean, this is insanity. This is insanity. And the Republicans are always accused of voter suppression. It's just the opposite. Okay, it's just the opposite. It is to make sure that the electoral rules are not followed. That's what the Democrats are doing. They want to remake the electorate.
Yeah. But it was the Russians that were trying to sabotage the U.S. democracy.
And those dastardly Macedonians.
That's right, the Macedonian troll farms. Oh boy, from
in St. Petersburg.
From Bert Sebastian, €5 super chat. What real political choice is left for the majority of Americans who are not part of the controlling elite?
Well,
can you repeat the question again, please? Can you repeat?
What real political choice is left for the majority of Americans who are not part of the controlling elite?
Well, I think that's a very valid question, because, of course, the whole way of the American system, the way the American political system has been evolving for decades, is to reduce choice as far as possible.
Yep.
But there is more choice, I think, in this election than there has been in the United States for a very long time. That's my own view. I mean, when it was Obama versus Romney, there wasn't, I think, very much choice. Donald Trump and Joe Biden, it's different. I mean, it may not be the ideal choice that you would look for, though you never get an ideal choice. But there is a choice there. There is a difference there anyway.
All right.
It's a referendum, guys. Anyway.
From the chat, €2 super chat. Did you listen to Tanzania's president, CV19?
No, I haven't. I don't know. But to be honest, no, I haven't. I mean,
we'll look it up, though. We'll
certainly look it up. I mean, there is so much information pouring in all the time. I mean, there is. I mean, just to say, I mean, only just a few minutes ago, flashed up that the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia is now indicating that he's going to grant Sidney Powell's writ of mandamus. I mean, it's this is on the Michael Flynn thing. There has never been a time when I have found it so difficult to keep up with the news, and of course, with the pandemic crisis, news pouring in there, it's been a real struggle, staying up long hours of the night to try and keep up with everything, and with magic mugs, Tanzanian presidents. I'm afraid they slipped through.
All right, the chat. We'll definitely take a look at that.
We will certainly look.
If there's a story there, we'll follow up on it. Thank you very much for your super chat. From Perth Sebastian, finance is a gun. Politics is knowing when to pull the trigger. Don Lukeski, aka Jerome Powell.
Nice.
Very good. Very good.
Good quote.
Very, very good. Excellent.
Very good.
Well done.
From Sparky, $2 super chat. Stacey Abrams is an empty creation of the Democrats.
Yeah. No, she's the embodiment of virtue signaling. That's exactly what she is. Maybe she's a nice person. I don't know. But I've looked at her resume. You don't need two sides of one piece of paper. Okay. There's not much there. As a matter of fact, if you look at her record in her own state, she has nothing. She doesn't support working people at all. There was a program for young people from poor families that if they got a high enough grade point average, they would be given a full ride, and it was a remarkably good program. And she was involved working against that program and just increased the GPA where it was almost the idea of perfect scores. And it passed. She went against her own party, went with the opposition, and essentially killed the program. Okay, I mean, there's no audacity of hope in her. I mean, she's just a creation of the Democratic Party to virtue signal and to show wokeism is part of their agenda, which most people are not interested in at all. So here they are pushing an empty vessel. Well, 30 million people are unemployed. How is she, putting pictures of herself on Twitter looking like Superman going to help the country? I'm at a loss.
Mm-hmm. Right. Has Tanzania actually kicked the WHO out? Is that the story that Tanzania has kicked the WHO out, or?
Well, maybe, as I said, we'll need to find out about this. I mean,
we'll look at it. We'll look at it. And thank you, Anne, for posting our numbers and our likes and everything. I really appreciate it. So thank you, Anne, in the live stream for that. And going back to super chats, Perth, Sebastian, Valley S, $20 super chat. Thank you, Valley S, as always, for that super chat. Really appreciate it. Perth Sebastian, €10 super chat. Trump has filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy for his company 6 times. Do you actually believe he has the business acumen to solve the economic crisis? Does his current team have that ability?
Yes. Well, when I first heard about bankruptcy in the United States, I thought that it was something that people took seriously, because I should tell you, I used to work a lot with bankruptcy.
Rich people don't.
What I was going to say, I discovered long ago that in the United States, bankruptcy and Chapter 13 bankruptcy is a completely conventional business device that business people use on a fairly regular basis. So whether he's got acumen or not as a businessman, I wouldn't.
It's very common.
But it is very
common. Yeah.
I'm afraid I don't consider that any kind of test of it.
It's very common, and in business to get to
and everybody gets paid.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, if you're a poor person or lower middle class, it counts against you. But you still can survive it. But the richer you are, the more likelihood you'll survive it. Okay.
Yes. There is nothing like that anywhere in Europe, by the way. And as I said, it should not be compared with compulsory liquidation of companies in Britain, personal bankruptcies here.
It's a different game in Europe when you have to liquidate.
Exactly, completely different
company,
game.
Much different game. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not sure the question really. I know where the origins of the question. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that for 3 years during his administration, and I always say this, the Democrats say, well, that was just the Obama economy taking off. No, it's really simple. Let's be honest here. If the economy does well during the time you're in office, you get credit. Okay, you get credit. And that's fair. Now, when I look at the recovery that Obama had to go through, again, I am fair. He inherited a disastrous situation with the meltdown of 2008, 2009. So I really get tired of people it's the worst recovery since the Second World War. Well, that was the worst crisis since the Second World War. But I give credit where credit is due, okay? Obama had a mediocre economy the entire time he was in office. He started off on a very tough footing, but he had 8 years. He had 8 years, not 3 years like Trump. Okay, so Trump did a good job in the first 3 years, nominally speaking. I always preface this, it's very, very complicated when you have macro and micro, it's really complicated. But I'm gonna give him the credit where it's due. So irrespective if he's bankrupt 6 times, the economy grew robustly during his time in office. Give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on a side note, failing in business is a helpful thing, guys. Yeah. It really is. When you fail in business, you learn. And that goes for everybody on every level. So
what he did was what he learned. I mean, a lot of people don't understand this, is that Trump learned. See, when his creditors, particularly the last time he went into bankruptcy, you know what they did? They decided his brand what was most valuable. His brand, okay, and that catapulted him into the presidency. No coincidence there.
No.
Okay. I mean, the thing is that, I had a very long conversation with George Samueli, a very good friend of mine and a friend of Crosstalk, is that, we were talking about how people I've talked about FDR here. FDR, the New Deal was a failure. It didn't end the recession. The New Deal was an economic failure. It was a political success. Okay? Because what FDR did was inspire a nation in dire straits. And that is why I'm just dumbfounded why Trump doesn't take he needs a political success. Is he going to be able to turn the economy around in a few months? No way. It could take years to dig out of this. In 3 months, they lost 10 years of job growth, 10 years. Franklin Roosevelt was elected 4 times on a vision. And that's what makes a politician great. Don't get into the minutia of everything. FDR failed over and over and over again in his programs, but he inspired hope. And this is what the country needs now, some hope.
All right, from K, €2 super chat. More options than presented, always. Very good
true.
comment.
That's very true.
Very
Absolutely
good.
true.
Very good. From Humanoid, $2 super chat. Denouncing Hillary on behalf of witches. Excellent.
Well, very good point, actually. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that. From Summer of 1970, $5 super chat. Most Americans are so indoctrinated that they believe all the wrong things. From Summer of 1970.
That's a big statement that could be unpacked for hours and hours and hours. I would generally agree though.
That could be a whole other live stream. Thank you very much, Summer of 1970. From Brando Commando, $5 super chat. The more I read, the more it seems anti-China sentiment is at the highest point since 1989. Is China making it worse through their actions?
I think it is far greater than it was in 1989. I remember 1989 very well. I think that the other thing about 1989 is that China is now opposed right across the political spectrum in the United States, and views against China are hardening in much of Europe, including Britain also. I think it's inevitable. I think that the fact that China has risen as an alternative possible economic challenger to the United States. Remember, in terms of its purchasing power parity, it's now got a bigger economy than the United States. It's inevitable when that happens that there will be a long period of time when relationship becomes adversarial. So, whatever the Chinese did or could have done, I don't think it would have made any fundamental difference. That's my own view. That's not to say they haven't done some bad and wrong things, but we would still be in a very tense situation anyway.
It doesn't matter what China has done.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the perception of what they have done. Yeah. Okay, and I'm not going to speak in details about that now, but though I do believe that all of us will be talking about this for a long time, because they're marshaling their forces. No, it has nothing. At the end of the day, it's not about the pandemic. At the end of the day, it's all about the hegemonic liberal order is broken, literally broken, and there's a reality. We live in a multipolar world. We do. But the elites in Washington, the Washington consensus does not want to recognize that. And that's why they're doing this, okay? It has nothing really per se have to do with this pandemic. That's their hook to get this fired up. And I'm certainly not here to defend China. But what I'm saying is that obviously things are going wrong in the West. Is it because of China? No, it's because of globalization and the way it was played out. See, the Chinese, they looked at economic globalization. The West mistakenly, lazily, and with a great deal of arrogance, financialized globalization. The Chinese turned it into an economy. Financialization emptied out the economy in the West because it was financialized. Different approaches to globalization. And the West is on the losing side because of very poor choices and, frankly, greed.
All right. From Brando Commando, $5 super chat. Is Russia abandoning Venezuela? Rosneft sold all their shares in Venezuela's oil company because it's not going to return a profit.
They're disengaging from Venezuela. I don't think it's any, economically at least. I don't think they will ever support regime change in Venezuela, or I mean, they will oppose it. But I think they have not. They've come to a conclusion that there's very little that they can realistically do in Venezuela, because the economic situation there is clearly extremely bad. I mean, I understand there's now even gasoline shortages in Caracas, which is an extraordinary state of affairs, given that it's a country with the world's biggest oil reserves.
Well, and also, I think there's a backstory to this too, is that Rosneft sold shares to entities where there were those entities would not be subject to sanctions. So what they're doing is that they're exiting, but not exiting. What they're doing is they're exercising foresight. They just don't want to get entangled into American sanctions against their own company, Rosneft proper. So they're leaving, but they're not leaving, if you know what I mean. What they've done is they've done things to limit any kind of legal exposure. So they're still there, just in a different form.
Okay, from Brando Commando, $2 super chat. What does Rogen's $100 million deal mean for YouTube?
Alexander Christophora has to answer that question. Go ahead.
Nothing. Nothing. Big tech is big tech. This is my opinion. Big tech is moving in a singular direction. It's not going to turn around. Whether Joe Rogan leaves or any other big content creators leave, they're moving in a direction, and you're not going to turn that ship around. And I'll also let people know that Spotify is big tech. Spotify is funded by the same exact VCs that YouTube, that Google, Facebook, Twitter, all of them are funded by. It's the same people within a 30-kilometer radius in Silicon Valley that fund all these companies. So YouTube's going to continue in that direction. Joe Rogan, he took the money, rightly so. He's done a good job. He took the big payout, the one-time payout. I'm sure if Google offered him $150 million, he would have stayed with YouTube. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. It doesn't mean anything for guys like us, small independent content creators that are grinding it out every day. Mm. It's not going to make a difference. YouTube has it in for us, and Joe Rogan leaving is not going to change that. I don't. That's my opinion. I don't know what you guys think. I don't think anything's going to change on the censorship.
He took the payday.
Took the payday.
Yeah.
Spotify's big tech.
Yes.
Big tech.
I'm entirely of the same view, actually. I mean, I don't really see any sign of any change. On the contrary, it's just becoming more difficult all the time for small creators like us.
Is Spotify a subscription? You have to pay for it?
Yeah, it's a subscription service. I mean, they have a free version as well, which is ad sponsored. But I mean, they're a music service, and maybe. And they have a lot of podcasts. Maybe they are playing around with videos now. Maybe they want to shift into the video arena. But, they're a music service first and foremost. And if they want to get into video podcasts, great. That's fine. But, you're not going to unseat YouTube in long form video. What is going to unseat YouTube is not another YouTube. That's not how tech works. No. What's going to unseat Facebook and be the end of Facebook is not another Facebook. It's going to be something different. It's going to be a different type of way to communicate. It's going to be a different type of way to share content in video formats. Look, what's the biggest Achilles heel to YouTube right now, guys? I'll tell you what it is. It's TikTok. It's not Spotify. It's not Joe Rogan leaving YouTube. It's TikTok. Short form, easily shared and consumed video, whether you like TikTok or not. This type of format is going to be a pain in the ass for YouTube because YouTube can't replicate it. So good for Joe Rogan. He made a lot of money, 100 million.
Some are saying it's even more, but yeah,
it's not going to change the censorship of big tech at all. At all. We're screwed when it comes to censorship. We're screwed. So just support us, guys. Support us. Keep us afloat. Help us out. All right. From Lindell, $2 super chat. Was Downer part of Russia plot or a useful idiot?
He was part of the plot. I mean, this is a hugely complicated story, but he's not. Whatever Downer is, he is not an idiot. He is, you don't, I mean, he's obviously the High Commissioner of Australia and Britain at the time, but he's a very well-connected, very prominent official, Australian official, a member of the Australian-British establishment. Very well-connected man. I've heard him, I've seen him on television here. He is absolutely somebody who knew what he was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill in the live stream. Yes, Bruce. Sorry. Yes, BitChute, guys, is a good platform. But you know, they're in the beginning, but they're a good platform for video. By the way, we have a BitChute channel, so check us out there.
Yeah.
From Jazz No Jazz, 10 CHF super chat. What role does Trump-Netanyahu connection play in the upcoming annexation of the West Bank and Jordan Valley in the view of the Democrats or Republican voters? In the view of the Democrat or Republican voters?
I think my impression is most voters in America care little about it, but those that do care about it tend to support it, irrespective of whether they're Republicans or Democrats. Republicans, I think, pretty much solidly support it. But again, I'm not American. On these sort of granular issues, I defer to the two people on this program who know America much better than me.
As far as in domestic politics, it'll probably have no ripple effect whatsoever. However, the ripple effect will be very strong on the international stage. The Europeans will not go with it at all. Okay, they won't buy into it. So again, another cleavage that we see widening between the U.S. and its European allies. It's just, I find it unconscionable that this is being done, that there are very few, if any, real voices in the U.S. that are pushing back against this. Our good friends over at the gray zone, of course, they'll be on our side, the right side of history. But as far as the dynamics for in domestic American politics, zip. Most people haven't even heard about it.
All right, and the final super chat from Vladimir. Do you think that Trump may become U.S.'s Gorbachev?
Interesting. Very, I mean, he'd be kind of like the Gorbachev of populism in America. I think that was what it would be, because it's hard to say. I tend to think that the populist movement is very real on the left and right, okay? And I think it's only going to increase because the very corrupt establishment in both parties, their corruption is being shown for what it is. It's very crass, it's very hedonistic, it's without any kind of moral foundation. It's just all rhetorical bluster. So this is their incompetence and their greed and lack of morality is just fueling populism on the left and the right. So Trump is a vessel. I think he's a very, very imperfect populist, very contradictory. Again, he was just decapitated or kneecapped in the first year and a half of his presidency. And I think the priorities of his platform in 2016 just kind of faded away. I mean, he's looking at survival. And that is really the legacy of it all. Donald Trump will always be forever a very complicated political figure. World historic for sure, but his first 4 years mediocre, I have to say. And everyone knows that I know what I say about foreign policy. At least Alexander Christoforou, at least he didn't start a new war. Since when is that the litmus test of having a good foreign policy? Yeah. That's the legacy of the last 40 years. Yeah.
It's something at least. Yeah. All right. That's it, guys. Yes, we are working on a library channel, by the way, for our videos as well. So keep an eye out for that. That's it. Any final words, guys? Any final thoughts before we sign out for the weekend?
Well, Alex Christoforou, I'll see you on Sunday.
On Sunday, yep. Alexander?
Well, as I said, I'm struggling to stay on top of the news. I'm going to make a general prediction. I mean, I've come across sometimes as a pessimist about the pandemic. I actually think it's abating. I follow this very, very closely. I think it's abating in all the big countries. I think it's abating in Britain. I think it's abating in the United States. I think it's abating in Russia too. I think it's abating actually faster than people realize. And I think that by mid-June, this will become very visible in most places.
All right, let's hope so.
Yeah, I'd like to have more visibility outside of
the great problem with the figures on this is because there is this particular infection has a very, very long incubation period. It takes a long time for the figures to firmly trend down. But when they do, expect around mid-June that they will fall very, very fast. I'm going to say something. I think in the United States and Russia, you're going to have only isolated outbreaks by August. I think it'll be essentially over there. I think in Europe, it's going to be a continuing problem in many countries, but much worse than we're seeing now. Other parts of the world, I'm not going to just discuss because I don't really know. But I think that we are actually coming much closer to the end of this than people understand. And I've been following the news very, very carefully on this. I'm also in contact with, people who are on the front lines, and I also get information from scientists and people of that kind who, I know through the fact that my wife is an academic and I have, contacts in the academic world. And this is the general trend that you can see with the numbers everywhere. But as I said, it'll take about perhaps another 2 weeks for this to become apparent. But I certainly think that we're much closer to seeing the end of this than I think most people understand. I also think, by the way, and this is the other thing I'm going to say, is that in the two countries which are doing the most testing by far, which are the United States and Russia, I think that makes it extremely unlikely that this second wave that people are talking about is going to be anything like as devastating as the first one. In parts of Europe, it may be different. These are my guesses.
It's a good optimistic way to
So as I said, I just wanted to say that because I know people always think that as I said, I'm a pessimist, but I think on the contrary, and I want to say again, and this is something I really want to emphasize. I think the American effort against this infection has been completely misrepresented. I think people who go on and on and on about how badly Donald Trump and the Trump administration has done in this matter are getting this entirely wrong. The US has handled this far better than most countries in Europe. And that's perhaps not saying much, but actually it's been overall, I would say, a strong performance.
He needs to do the same thing with the economy now.
Yeah.
All right, we will leave it there. Good live stream, guys. Thank you for everyone who joined us on this live stream. Have a great weekend, everybody, in the live stream as well. thank you for your super chats and for your excellent questions. And that's it. We're signing out. Have a great Friday.